But to get back to the issue, Creole as an ethnic label was known and used in French and Spanish colonial Louisiana. It's very significant and important to understand this because the children of Creoles, the first generation and the later generations born in that colonial period, their children in the American period continued to identify as such. That's largely the result of a lack of education, a lack of American assimilation in the early period. We continued to speak French legally, even in the American period, into the 20th century. In the country, we continued to speak it widely until the 1970s when Codafil put a damper on things by making people believe that they were speaking bad French. So the use of the adjective and the identity of Creole in Louisiana goes back a long time. And people today who are Creoles identify as such along the same lines of their ancestors who had not quite embraced an American identity. They knew they were no longer French. They knew they were no longer West African. They knew that they were no longer Acadian because they had not been born in those mother countries, ancestral mother cultural countries or sources. They were born in Louisiana, and that made everybody Creole, put everybody on the same level playing field until the ugly racial politics of 19th century Anglo-America created and imposed this bycast system of everyone's going to be black or white. And then we had problems. Free people of color, who were the mixed-race children, Latinate people of French and European families, and some of African origin as well, because under Louis XIV there was none of this racial gradation and apartheid. As long as one was Catholic, the identity of a Frenchman in those days, you could marry whoever you loved. Even slaves could be freed and marry whoever they loved once they were freed as Catholic. So a person was Creole then by virtue of birth and acculturation in Roman Catholic colonies of French and Spanish Louisiana. Additionally, the adjective Creole was applied to tomatoes, horses, foods, languages, when and if these were produced in the colony itself, in distinction to foreign-born produce. To this day, the French still refer to their children as Creoles in distinction to themselves, in the same way that the British refer to Americans as colonials, because we're no longer acculturated in the same way that our ancestors of these former nations were initially. Some people have confused Creole, which is really a Latinate people, with physical characteristics of bright skin and good hair, and all this embarrassing jargon, just as Charles Gaillaret back in the day in 19th century New Orleans decided to recreate the meaning of Creole into an exclusive white caste of aristocratic ruling families, which was a myth totally foreign and unknown in the earliest documents of French and Spanish colonial Louisiana, and for that matter, across the former French colonial world. Illustrating the simple meaning of Creole in Louisiana, or rather across the French colonies, 18th century French colonial scholar, historian, lawyer, Médéric Louis Moreau de Saint-Méry of Saint-Domingue, which is now Haiti, and once France's wealthiest plantation colony, Méry's comments are straightforward. Méry leaves no confusion as to what Creole meant in the colonies of France, and I'm going to read you what he says regarding that. And this is from his remarkable book, collection of writings about the history of Saint-Domingue. His book is Description topographique, physique, civile, politique et historique de la partie française de l'île Saint-Domingue, avec ses observations générales sur la population, sur le caractère et les mœurs de ses divers habitants, sur son climat, sa culture, ses productions, son administration, etc., accompagné de détails les plus propres à faire connaître l'état de cette colonie à l'époque du 18e octobre 1799. d'une nouvelle carte de la totalité de l'île, Médéric Louis Eddy. And this is what he says. He says, il y a les créoles blancs, les créoles de couleur, les créoles nègres. There are white Creoles, Creoles of color, and black Creoles. Obviously, Creole was not a phenotype and was not limited to people with bright skin and good hair, and certainly did not exclude black people from being Creole. In this sense, the children of Germans, Italians, French, Canadians, Mexicans, Acadians, Africans, Swiss, all of these people were born in the colonial period and acculturated in French and Spanish Louisiana were all considered Creole, just as tomatoes and horses and houses